Here we go. Let's do this.
We've got one life, one shot. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? Addicted to Betterment, a podcast to inspire us to keep going, to try something new, to dream, to think big, bigger, to overcome. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome to today's show. Addicted to Betterment is going to get lit up today. Sometimes you have a conversation that just lights you on fire. Sometimes you have conversations that suck the life out of you. I was fortunate enough on today's episode to have a conversation that lit me on fire. And my hope is that with us sharing this conversation with you today, it challenges you, inspires you, and inspires you to have power in your life. Welcome to this special episode with my friend, Jason Amato. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So I recently had a friend of mine call me up, and we're on a call, and she tells me, "Hey, David, you've got to meet this guy, this friend of mine that you two are like brothers separated at birth." And my instant thought when I hear something like that is, "Oh no, I'm not sure I even want to meet this guy." But you know, you're always a little skeptical when someone tells you something like that. And Jason Amato, welcome to the show today. When I got a chance to meet you, the first thing I thought after about 20 minutes into our first conversation, I thought, Tanya Dittman, you are not wrong. Jason Amato is like a man after my own heart. Jason, welcome to the show today, man. I'm excited to have you on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, David. Yep, you're already like a brother. We just talk on the phone, but kindred spirits. And every time we talk, it seems like we shoot for the moon, and a lot of vision and a lot of stories and a lot of exciting things happen by the time I get off the phone with you.
Oh, man. So, Jason, one thing I got to tell you before we get started, coming from a dude, coming from a brother, when I get to talk to a man who has the fire and the passion for life, the passion for impact, I mean, it can't help but fire me up. And I tell you, I appreciate people who are going all out in life. And so, first of all, just for me and all of our listeners and friends, thank you. Thank you for being that kind of person who leads with passion and authenticity. So Jason, I'm excited to share with what you have going on, and I know that this conversation is going to be fiery and high energy. And but first, I got to tell you why we're on the show today. So, friends, I'm here to talk about some exciting things Jason is working on. But what prompted this? So, you know, I do a lot of meetings and I get on it with a purpose and an agenda, and I'm going to get on the meeting to talk about this certain thing. And Jason, you're one of those meetings we had scheduled, and I had a very clear purpose for the meeting. And as I do every meeting, I started out professionally. Hey man, great to see you, great to talk, catch up a little bit as a bro. And then I'm like, hey, how long do you have? Great. I got that time too. Awesome. Here's what I would like to talk about. And I was going to talk to you about this thing that you do called Takedown Adventures. It's super exciting. Tell me real quick, and for our listeners, what Takedown Adventures is, so I can get into why I called you about that and then what we're really going to talk about.
Yeah, great. Takedown Ventures, our mission statement is we create environments of engagement to educate, excite, and empower our guests, resulting in truly unique, impactful experiences. Bottom line, we go all over the country from Los Angeles, Boston, Naples, San Antonio, Minneapolis, and we bring bow and arrows, tomahawks, crossbows, wild game chefs, and we bring a different kind of experience to both corporate America, small business, sports teams, you name it. People that are looking for something highly relational and highly unforgettable, they call us. So instead of your typical golf outings, skybox experiences, wine and dines, we work with these businesses, brands, and organizations to just put this awesome, awesome experience for their teams together, their coworkers, their potential clients, and current clients.
Pretty sure I misheard you. You did not say bow and arrows and tomahawks, right? Please tell me I didn't hear that right.
Yeah, we're flinging them. Just yesterday we had Ozinga Concrete, biggest concrete company in the Midwest, and here we were flinging arrows, throwing tomahawks at 20-foot story, 20 foot high windows downtown Chicago. We had ladies in high heels and skirts, men in three-piece suits, everybody having a good time.
Wait, you said ladies and men. So first of all, there is zero chance that I'm ever bringing my wife with me anywhere where there's bow and arrows and tomahawks. I value my life, but am I understanding that you have men and women, corporations, teams together, out shooting bow and arrows, flinging tomahawks, and doing that as a team? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, because for me, I didn't grow up around that stuff. I was just middle class, suburbia, Chicago, played sports and business. And then a gentleman hijacked my life, put a bow and arrow in my hand in my 20s. I fell in love with it. And what I started to realize real quick was me and my wife would take out our friends, we call them our Ken and Barbie doll friends that we hung out with, and we put bow and arrows and crossbows and tomahawks in their hands. And here's the deal, we call it educate, excite, empower. If you educate people a little bit on something that's foreign to them, they get excited. You give them a little success, they get more excited. But then if you spend time with them, it leaves them empowered. And that's where we came up with our 3 E's and said, wow, there's a lot of people out there that could just enjoy feeling good about themselves, that could really enjoy, we call it physical gratification, but not in a negative sense as an adult. And people get to just hear that tomahawk thud into a stump. They get to watch the arrow get closer to an actual bullseye. And we bring these, and I got some hillbilly friends. I love my hillbilly friends. I consider myself a secondary hillbilly. But this we're bringing to mainstream America and saying we can make this really fancy, really fun, really safe. And at the end of the day, you will look like a hero when you bring us in.
That's super exciting. I know what you guys do is powerful and impactful. If you're an organization or a leader and you have a team and you don't give Jason Amato and his team a call to do a team building experience for your organization, you're missing out because what they do is incredible and good work to you. So just set that up to say, so that's the purpose I was calling you. And we have a business call about that. But you have a hat on and you point to your hat and you mentioned your foundation that you started. And you said, well, this hat. And I asked the question, this is about 7 minutes into our call now. And I asked the question, tell me about Hill Takers Foundation. And it was there that our whole entire call went off the rails. We never discussed another second of business. And I was like, brother, I have got to have you on my show to talk about this because it lit a fire in me. And any of my friends who listen to our podcast, I apologize because I know you've already heard this 100 times. But Jason, share with me and our friends. Tell me about Hill Taker Foundations. First of all, tell me what it is.
Yeah, so our mission statement there is we exist to take men from where they are now to where God created them to be. And it goes along the premise that all of us, when we wake up in the morning, even if we're not in active duty out in battle, we wake up and there is hills to be taken. The hills could be relationships that need to be better. It could be, it could be your job. You're just kind of plateaued. You're kind of just throwing the towel in. You're kind of cruising. You need to improve your actual corporate portfolio. It might be an injustice in your neighborhood, in your city, something that you are just not seeing. It might be your health. You got to get to the gym. You got to start eating healthy. It's maybe habits that you need to remove from your life that are bad, or it might be atomic habits that you need to include into your life that are missing. Whatever it might be, men or women, this applies to women too. The reality is we wake up and there's hills that need to be taken. Sadly, there's very few people that wake up with a hill taker mentality to actually take those hills.
So good. So, Jason, Addicted to Betterment is founded on this core principle of the life wheel, in which we break our life up into multiple segments. And I believe you and I have had a conversation about this, but, so if we split our life up into finances and faith, and, for me, my life wheel would look like faith, finances, fitness, my relationship with my wife, parenting, important relationships. So if I look at that, and then in every one of those is some kind of challenge, a hill that, as you would describe it, that needs to be taken. Thank you for the explanation of what's behind that. So tell me the why. What got Jason Amato so passionate about this? And then I'm excited to dive deeper into what Hill Takers Foundation is and the concept behind it.
So for me growing up, it was all sports, it was all fitness, and I didn't grow up with a brother. I said a sister, love my sister, but I always craved just deep relationships with my guys on my team, the guys at the gym, everything I was doing. And so it just really felt like I had a place and a voice with men. Men, for whatever reason, would kind of listen to me. And so I always enjoyed that interaction. And as we get older, we notice in life we go from our trophies and our spelling bees and grades and all this. And as men, we replace them for cars and careers. And what I found as I got older in life, our environments of engagement, those places that us men get to connect, they diminish. There's less places for us to go and hang out. You have your local bar, you got your local church, you got your career, you got your family. But it just gets fewer and fewer opportunities for us to connect with men, and that leads to isolation. And so, fast forward, I was always involved in some type of leadership at the local church, doing small groups with guys. And I remember it was as early as in college, I said, men don't need another book. They don't need another curriculum, especially nowadays. There's 1,000 of them, and they're all good. But at the end of the day, what men need more than anything else is a space. They need a place where they can experience raw, authentic community, because that's what I was craving. And I always said if I ever got a spot and ever I got a place, I would set the place up to be able to do a men's type of experiential thing. And so, fast forward, I'm going through doing all that. And I'm now traveling the country for takedown, putting on these experiences and enjoying them. And what that ended up leading to was a need to find a property, not only to just store trailers and all our gear for doing this, but also a place where my guides that go around with me could actually hang out. They could fling arrows, do things. And so with that, we started dreaming. We started dreaming of a place. And to make a long story short, a 4-acre property popped up that we never thought in our wildest dreams we'd ever be able to acquire. And we ended up being able to acquire that this last year, May actual 12th of 23. So we're coming on almost our 1-year anniversary on Monday. And when we knew we were going to acquire that property at a 4,500 square foot outbuilding on it, we had a design to put an archery range, do all that stuff. We knew it was time. We knew it was time to set something up. And so the Hill Taker Foundation was set up. It's a 501c3, and the name stems from my favorite character in the Bible. And whether you believe in God, you read the Bible, you don't, just historically, we can just take the Israelites and Caleb for an example. Here were these people, and Caleb's story is twofold. It starts on the front end, a young Caleb, and picture our Navy SEALs today. These 12 Navy SEALs are sent out to just take a look and spy on this promised land that they're trying to get to. And they all see these giants, they all see all the obstacles, right? But they come back, and what's fascinating is two of them see it differently than everybody else. This guy named Joshua and Caleb, they both come back and like, we can do it. There's really big giants, there's really big obstacles, we can do it. Sadly, the other 10 say no, and popular vote rules. So they end up walking away from this great opportunity, and they spend 40 years roaming around in desert world. But that story doesn't end there. And the best part of Caleb's story is the bookend on the back end. We find Caleb, he's in his 80s, and history and historical documents will say he's either the oldest or the second oldest left of all his people. And we see him pick up, and it's his retirement. And I don't know about you, David, but me, if I'm retiring, I'm thinking Steamboat, Colorado. I'm shooting elk with my bow. I'm skiing. Maybe it's Costa Rica and surf. I don't know what it is for people, but here's Caleb at his retirement. And instead of picking the beautiful, lush area that's already been conquered, he says, it's in Joshua 14:12. He says, now give me the hill country that the Lord promised me. And it's just fascinating for so many reasons. But the biggest reason is what makes that so special? Well, we know from history that that actual area he was claiming and asking for in his old age was inhabited by the Anak tribe. And if any of you ever played sports or you've been in business, you've heard the David and Goliath analogy, right? Usually I'm always David, I'm never Goliath. And so we're always told about this big Goliath. Well, Goliath came from as a descendant of the Anak tribe. So here's this 80-year-old dude taking his family and his kids and saying, I was made for a moment such as this. I'm a hill taker. I am going to take this hill and all my family with me to show what we can do even in my ripe old age. And we're going to take hills. And that is just, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, man, you're not alive. You don't got blood flowing through your veins. And that's always resonated with me because whether you're young or old, we all have hills. And whether young or old, I want to be known as a hill taker. And I want those around me to come with me to take hills and be inspired with me. And so that's how the Hill Taker Foundation was created, saying, look, it isn't just for old times. It isn't just for a Marine or someone in the Navy or the Army or Special Ops Forces these days. It's for every man, woman, child that wakes up with air in their lungs. They wake up with hills to be taken. And sadly, most of us spend most of our life cruising through the valleys, and we miss out on all the adventure and the transformation that happens up in the hills.
Man, Jason, I have a big glass door right here in the studio, and I feel like I could just run straight through it head first right now. I mean, you're speaking our language, and you're speaking to me. I mean, it's so easy to get stuck in mediocrity and to settle for our circumstances. We believe that this is what's the best I can do, or it's the best I can have, and we just accept the situation in our life versus being proactive, taking control of our life. So, man, thank you for sharing that story, and you share it with passion, and it fires me up. And friends, if this doesn't fire you up, I don't know what does. So addicted to betterment. This is it. So Caleb takes the hill, and you, Jason, start Hill Taker Foundation. And now you got me fired up and being a hill taker. So help me understand a little bit of the concept of hill takers, kind of what's some of the substance behind the hill taker mindset.
So, at the fundamental principle, everything behind, like, what does it mean to be a hill taker? I had to ask myself that question, like, what made Caleb different? What are the men and women, the people that I walk on? I'm like, man, that guy's a hill taker. What is it about them? And what kept coming back to me was they exude power. When I'm in the room, when I'm on the field, when I'm in a build, wherever I'm at, business, professionally, personally, you know when you're in the presence of a hill taker. And so I did is I'm a simple-minded guy. I need simple stuff. And so I love acronyms. And what I ended up coming up with was the POWER acronym. And I had no idea when I came up with it that it was going to change so many lives in such a short period of time to actually be the basis of this foundation. And now both men that are running giant companies to some of my sons that are 12 years old are talking about this POWER acronym. And so let me break it down. The POWER acronym, we're going to start with P. So P, a hill taker has a different perspective. You look at people, let's talk from the spiritual standpoint. Caleb saw the giants differently than the other 10. He had a different perspective. Let's take this from the business world. I go doing a lot of things in like the financial industry, which is always up and downs in the markets. And when I'm in the room with men and women that are killing it, they have a different perspective on the storms and the volatility of the markets. They don't see it the way everybody else does, and that's why they're successful. You talk about athletes, the Hall of Fame athletes, and what's common about them was they just did things differently. They saw the way they went to practice differently. They saw their preparation was different. Their eating habits, their health, the way they dealt with they just saw things different. They had a different perspective. Hill takers have a different perspective. That's one. Oh, they have an offensive mindset. You got to wake up on the offense. It is so easy for me and you and all of us, I'm speaking to myself, to wake up and want to hit cruise control. There is so much adversity in our world. There's so much personal, professional, communal. There is just turn on the TV. There is just chaos going on. It is difficult to wake up and really want to make a difference. Mentally, I think it sounds great, but when it's my job to do it, it's a whole different story. But a hill taker wakes up and sees the injustices around them in their community and says, someone better stand up and do something. Someone better open their mouth. A hill taker wakes up and says, I may have a decent relationship with my kids, but it could be better. A hill taker wakes up, especially a guy, and says, you know what? I'm cruising, I'm providing for my wife. Because see, we get this lie as men. As long as we can, provide or do this, we're okay. But we could be totally neglecting our wives emotionally and mentally and being for them there, and vice versa, women for the men, same thing. And the reality is a hill taker says, no, I want to look at the holistic approach in my relationships because my holistic approach is there's better things that I can do for my wife. I can be a better husband. I can be a better spouse. And so you play that out. I can be a better leader to my guides. I can be a better boss. I can go and wake up and say, you know what? I mean, I saw this a lot during COVID. We were traveling around the country still. We were still doing things, making things happen, and people were hiring us. And here's what I found. There was still hill takers out there that were saying, look, I want to wake up today and I could cruise with my portfolio or I can still wake up. And there was guys hiding in their underwear in basements and there was men getting out there and still hitting the phones and still making calls because they wanted to improve their business, build up their portfolio. That's what hill takers do. They have an offensive mindset. And to summarize that, It's really simple. Hill takers see that in the valleys, the transformation doesn't happen in the valleys, it happens on the climb up on the hills. They know the only way to transform, the only way to improve is actually to run towards actual obstacles, to run towards adversity. So they have an offensive mindset. A W is for wholehearted devotion. What in the world is that? That's a big word. Well, guess what? I want it on my tombstone one day. I want it to be said of me. It was said of Caleb. The reason he declared and had the boldness to stand before God and say, you promised me this, and I've lived out a life worthy of the promise. It says he was wholeheartedly devoted. And I don't care what it is in life, when you're around people that are wholeheartedly devoted to something. I mean, I joke around, I'm wholeheartedly devoted to college football, ice cream, and sweatpants. I love it. But at least I'm wholeheartedly devoted to something. When you're around people that are wholeheartedly devoted to their relationships, they're wholeheartedly devoted to their profession, they're wholeheartedly devoted to betterment, they're wholeheartedly devoted to something. They're winners. They win. People want to be around that. And it was no different of Caleb, and I don't want it to be any different in my life. I want people to be wholeheartedly devoted to something from the moment they take their first breath in life till the day that they die. There's no taking days off. There's no taking weeks off. There's no taking hours off. Hill takers, every second counts. Look, I've lost friends to death, to accidents. And that's a reminder. When you stand at somebody's casket, you stand at a tombstone, you were reminded we're not promised of David even finishing this conversation. We're not promised of any of it. So why wouldn't we live and carpe diem and seize every single moment? Got to have wholehearted devotion. That's what hill takers do. E. Now, this is a countercultural one. This is a hill taker empowers others. Okay, you can turn on so many channels, so many things, different podcasts, and a lot of them, if you're not careful, they're just focused on better. I'm going to get a 6-pack. I'm going to get an 8-pack, or I'm going to sell my business for this much money. Now, the root of all that is not bad at all. That's great. We need to have podcasts. We need to have all these different people and voices and things talking and encouraging us, giving us step-by-step processes and places. There's really smart people out there doing things like what you guys are doing, having these podcasts to help people out. But if people don't take that and they don't apply it to their lives and to others, if they only apply it to them, they get to what's called isolation. And men, you can hear me out there, especially. You're leading things, you're doing whatever, and you've been going to the gym, you've been hitting your work, you've been doing all these things. And then you wake up one day and you realize, oh no, I'm all by myself. I've propped Jason Amato up. Jason's got a 6-pack. Jason's got a bank account. Jason's got this, but guess what? No one else is with me. I've burned my family in the process. I've burned my relationships in the process. So we got to be careful that all this knowledge that we consume, which is all good as a society, we've never had the privilege and the benefit to learn from people like you, David, and others, all this different information. But if we don't pass it on to other people, we don't pass it on to my kids, what in the world are we getting fat for on all this knowledge? So a hill taker understands that they need to pass it on. And here's the second reason why they need to pass it on. It's a selfish reason. It's not just because it's the good thing to do. If you want to really do something powerful in your life, you want to build a big company, you want to build a big brand, you want to build an awesome family that generations will still talk about you and the way you loved your family, you did things together, you realize the only way to accomplish those audacious goals is with other people. You can't do it alone. You have to empower others. And at Hill Takers, we got an audacious goal to just transform the lives of men all over the place. And with that, I'm very mindful that Jason Amato can't do that by himself. Jason Amato can't talk and do all this stuff in one place. And plus, I don't have the credibility with certain type of men. You have credibility with men I don't. I have credibility with men you don't. But guess what? Collectively, we can make a serious charge. And if we go locked arm in arm and we run towards the hills, hill takers know they're taking such big hills they can't do it alone. And so I'll leave all you with this question before we move on to the next one. Analyze your life, analyze your business, analyze your relationships, analyze your status in your community. And if you can do all of that in your own strength and you don't get butterflies in your stomach and you wake up, then you don't have big enough goals and you don't have big enough dreams. And you are not scaling big enough hills. That's the thing, man. That is why we have to empower others. And that's what hill takers do.
Oh, dude. I gotta breathe, man. I gotta breathe. Like, I mean, this stuff is sick, brother. This is, I mean, this is such real stuff. It's so real. And Jason, I'm telling you, I talk to men every day all over the country, and women, but our society is hungering for this. This is, I mean, authentic, real. Reject passivity, be offensive minded, take control of your life, take control of your circumstances, be wholehearted. I mean, brother, yeah, this is, and then empowering others. Like, when you said that about, if you can do it alone, your goal's not big enough. And I'm just like, man, fist bump. All right, tell me what's the R?
So the R is ruthless trust. Now you're kind of like, what in the world is that? Ruthless trust. Well, let me tell you. Let's go back to hills. If you're taking big hills, they're scary. And if you're taking big hills, you may see the summit, but it's cloudy on the way up. I've never met an entrepreneur. I've never met a man on his deathbed talking about his relationships with his wife and his family that hasn't said there were some really hard points. There were points where I didn't know how I was either going to pay a bill. I didn't know how I was going to be able to work through that with my wife. I didn't know I was going to be able to work through that difficulty of adolescence with my children. I've met man after man after man, no matter what their age. There are storms and there are clouds. So just because we're going up a hill doesn't mean it's a crystal clear path to how we're going to get there. We know where we want to go, but it's cloudy. So what does it take? It takes ruthless trust. It took Caleb to ruthlessly trust God's promise, though he wandered in a desert for 40 years, that he would eventually get back to the place of what God promised him. How many of you out there are sitting there and saying, man, I had a dream. Man, I had this business idea. Or I thought this relationship was going to work out this, and it didn't, this and that. And you think your dream's dead. It doesn't have to be. It's ruthlessly holding on to, if it's good things, obviously, right? It's good things. You want to have that marriage. You want to have those children that, you have a loving relationship with. You want to grow your business. Whatever it is, you can't let go of those dreams. You have to have ruthless trust. Now, you take that from like the business world and the everyday life world. It's just as applicable. What do I talk about when I'm in business meetings with business leaders and talking with their teams as we're going through this POWER acronym? It's simple. Guess what? The storms of life hit. The stock markets go up and down. The economy goes up and down. The world goes upside down some years. Everything is always going back and forth. But here's the reality. The businesses and brands that hold true, that have ruthless trust in their people and their processes, they're the ones that stand the test of time. So if you're a brand or a business that doesn't have good process, you don't got the best people, then you're in trouble when the storms hit because you're not going to know are you going to make it to that summit. But the businesses and brands that have surrounded themselves with the right people and the right processes, they're listening to podcasts like yours. They're listening to things. They're doing things to put the work in. When the storms hit, they have ruthless trust that they're going to see the sunshine on the other side. And that's what ruthless trust is.
Man. And I want to follow that up with ruthless trust in yourself. Like, just one other thing to add to that is, all the things you said. And then as I'm listening to you, I'm like, man, trust. So often we doubt ourselves. We don't even believe in ourselves. And it's like, ruthlessly trust. I mean, if I couldn't have gotten more fired up when you throw out the ruthless trust, listen, anytime you use ruthless with anything that's good, it's going to speak to my
It's
soul.
like bacon. It's like bacon.
Exactly. I mean, when you say do it ruthlessly, okay, I'm in. And then you say ruthlessly trust. Like, and I think of how that applies to my marriage. I think of how it applies to my, everything that I'm trying to advance the ball in my life. And sometimes you feel like you're pushing the ball uphill, and doubt and all the things creep in our society and critics and all this stuff. And you just got to ruthlessly trust that the process is going to pay out, that what you're doing is the right thing. And man, if someone is listening to this and they want to have power in their life and they want to live a life filled with power, because I know I do. When we had this conversation, Jason, I got off the phone. I was pouring sweat. My adrenaline was at an all-time high. I felt like I was Peyton Manning and I had just thrown a 60-yard touchdown pass or something. I mean, I couldn't even handle myself because this is so, it's so invigorating, it's refreshing, and it's an eye opener. So if somebody wants to be a hill taker, I mean, I'm sure this is evolving. I know we've talked about this. Help me understand what's the future look like for hill takers? Because I mean, listen, I want to be a hill taker, whatever that looks like. I'll get the tattoo. I'll buy the swag, whatever it is. I'm in.
Yeah, so we're drinking out of a fire hose right now. It's pretty exciting. Word is traveling. Actually, you're going to be coming out with a book, Hill Taker. So that should be done by probably the end of this year. And our ultimate goal is, so we've set up this facility in the Chicagoland area in the western suburbs, but it's a microcosm of the macro. And the reality is, what we want to see is hill taker hubs popping up all over the country. It's finding tribes of men, because if you want to grow, you want to be in a microwave environment, not a crock pot. I talk about this all the time, that there's between a microwave and a crock pot. Okay, there's the crock pot that takes a long time. In business, you got the sales cycle that takes forever versus the microwave. Well, it's no different when trying to get men from where they are to where God intended them to be. Life is too short for me. I want to be in a microwave with them. I don't want to be in a crock pot. And so time is short. And at Hill Takers, we want microwaves, not crock pots. So we're going to set up experiences, and whatever that is in the country, those Hill Taker leaders would identify what are the biggest needs. And it's not just the needs. We can identify a need, but if God doesn't provide the leaders, we don't got anything. So it's, where are the needs? Who are the people that are crying out for a need? And then would you please bring the right leaders to come and lead these people?
Man, that's good. That's good. So, Jason, thank you. Wow. You just hit addicted to betterment about as well as addicted to betterment could be hit. So, you talked about scars. Here's the reality, we all have them. And something that you said is, we're all dealing with something. And when I'm around authentic men, I have yet in the last many years since this has become a passion of mine, had an authentic conversation with a man who didn't say, man, I am dealing with stuff. And what I know really quick is when I talk to someone who isn't dealing with anything, they're lying. Any single person who's trying to get better in life, trying to improve their marriage, their relationship with their spouse, their relationship with their kids, get better in fitness, get better in I mean, life is not if you're a neutral, you're going backwards, period. And so you're either advancing or you're going backwards. It's that simple. There's no either or. There's no and. It's you're either taking ground and moving forward, or life circumstances and everything else is taking you backwards. So when what you said is when you're around those kind of men, you notice it. You notice it quick. But every man that I'm around, every person is dealing with something, and so many of us are looking for tools, resources, other people to lock arms with and help each other on our journey. So, man, the work you're doing, Jason, it is awesome. Thank you for being on this show today, friends. And I'm telling you, if this doesn't inspire you and just make you want to dive in and go harder, I don't know what is. This is Addicted to Betterment at its finest. Jason, real quick, somebody is fired up like me and they want to figure out how to get a hold of you. What's the best, most efficient way to get a hold of you and explore more for hill takers or takedown adventures?
Yeah, so they can email me. They can email me at Jason at Takedown Eventures with an E, like an event. So Jason at takedowneventures.com. That'd be the best way to reach out. And man, I'm happy to set up conversations. I believe I was put on this earth to just excite and empower people and listen to their stories. And so I'd love for people to reach out to me. And so I think email would probably be best, and we can talk the best way to set up like a Zoom call if it makes sense.
Man, that's good. So I'm going to leave you with one final thing. I'm going to confess something to you. So I ordered on Amazon I wear bracelets on my arm, and all of them have meaning of some sort, and none of them are just for decoration. They all have some sort of meaning. So I have one that all of my kids, I bought all of them the same bracelet. So we all have, me and my boys, One is just a really cool energy. One is from Haiti that someone in Haiti gave me when I was on a mission trip. And this other one says, whatever it takes. And it's just something I put on every day that, different ones I wear for different days. But I ordered one on Amazon that says power. And I'm going to wear it so I can be reminded consistently that I want to live my life with power. So thank you, Jason.
So you just listened to this episode. Now, join us in being addicted to betterment. Please subscribe to the show, share with your friends, tag us, and please take a moment, leave a review. Yeah, we do want your stars, but we really want the feedback.